Okay. Okay. So much going on, but good stuff is going on. Um, we, well, what is going on? It's an interesting parsha this week. I'll tell you that much. We're going to get started right away. Oh, thank you, Sasha. You're good. Okay. Yes. We have. I always say, starting from now, it gets really, it gets busy. Another 2 weeks is Purim. Believe it or not, Purim is coming. If you haven't yet reserved your Purim baskets, we give out, it's a special mitzvah in honor of Purim to give out gifts of food. It creates a beautiful sense of unity and joy amongst our community. So if you haven't yet participated in the Purim project, you could do so by going online. I believe you should have received it in the mail, or it's at least coming. You can participate. We're going to be packing the boxes. Hi, Shura. We're going to be packing the boxes next week. I'll send out information. We're going to be doing it socially distanced outside. Anybody that's able to help with that, that would be wonderful. We have, I was thinking last week in our class, Parshat Yisro, we were talking about Avram and Sarah, the beginning of, my voice sounds worse, the beginning of monotheism, how they were the first ones who taught about there being one God. And in fact, this year we're going with a theme on Purim. We're making it Purim in Avram and Sarah's tent. First, we have a tent outside. What better way to celebrate Purim? We're doing an Israeli theme where we're going to have beautiful wines. It's going to be an outdoor Purim celebration on Friday at 12 o'clock. It's Erev Shabbos. And we're going to be having the Megillah the night before, all outside in the tent. You should know, according to Jewish law, you're not allowed to hear Megillah on Zoom.
Oh,
you're not allowed to hear. Yeah, I know it's a difficult thing because, hi Terry, it's because you're not allowed to even use a mic.
Thank God. That's what I say. We get to meet each other.
Yeah, but for those that can't go out, it is challenging. If there's anybody here that would like to hear the Megillah, I know my husband said he will travel to someone's home if they're not able to come out. You can reach out to us privately. In 2 weeks, the week before Purim, we're going to have a class on Purim. It's always important that we understand the holiday, because if we don't understand the holiday, we approach it differently. So lots of exciting things happening. I'm going to send out notices. I just wanted to bring you up to date, and then Pesach's around the corner, Passover. But let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the Parsha today. So this is an interesting Parsha, the Parsha of Mishpatim. Before we go into the details of the Parsha, let's sing our song. We're midway in the second book of Shemos. So let's review. What are the 5 books of the Torah? Say it with me. Bereshis, which is Genesis. Shemos, which is Exodus. Leviticus is Vayikra. Bamidbar, which is Numbers, and Devarim, Deuteronomy. You only have to know it in Hebrew. Bereshis, Shemais, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim. And we are in the second book of Shemais, and we are in Parsha number 5. So let's go ahead and sing our song from the beginning. Bereshis Noach lech lecha vayerach Sarah toldos. Bereshis Noach lech lecha vayerach Sarah toldos. Vayitze vayishlach vayishev miketz vayigash vayechi. We're on book number 2. Shemos va'era bo Vishalach Yisro Mishpatim. That's our parsha this week, Mishpatim. Shemos va'era bo Vishalach Yisro Mishpatim. That's where we are. Tiruma titzave kisisa vayakel pekudei. Look at that. You almost know 2 full books by heart. You're masters. Last week, we spoke about the revelation of Sinai. We spoke about the 10 commandments, right? That is when Hashem revealed himself to the Jewish people. Okay? just to bring us from the beginning of the book of Shemos, the book of the second book. We began where Yaakov and his sons and their wives, they all travel down to Egypt, right? They come down to Egypt. Yosef and his siblings eventually pass away, and begins the slavery with the new king Paro. They're in slavery, and finally, who takes them out of Egypt? Moshe. And after the 10 plagues, and after the 10th plague, they leave Egypt. They travel for how many weeks to the desert? Come on, I taught you something.
7 weeks.
They traveled for 7 weeks to the desert, and they received the Torah at Mount Sinai. That's where that's Parsha in a nutshell, from the beginning of Shemos, Va'era Bo, B'Shalach, Yisro. 5 Parshas. Today we're on Mishpatim. And then begins the laws, all the halachas. As a kid, I remember when we got up to this Parsha, it was like, oh, not so exciting anymore. It's not a story. This particular Parsha is a different nature. It starts to talk about laws, halacha, mitzvahs. And this one is full of mitzvahs. It's full of mitzvahs, mishpatim, teruma, tetzaveh. All these next few parshas are halachas, are laws. And as you know, in Torah, these laws are as they are, the way they're written, the way they're said. There's unbelievable halacha. And the Talmud, so many of the conversations about Jewish law originate from these parshiot, from these chapters. But we know that there's something called pardes, right? Remember, we've spoken about this many times. There's the pshat, there's the simple explanation, then there's the remez, then there's the drash, and then there's the sod, which means there's the simple explanation, there's the remez, which is the hints, there's the drash, there's the explanations, and then there's the sod, there are the secrets, there's the Kabbalah. And every single word of Torah has every single layer. And that's why every year we do the Parsha again and again. And every year when we read the Parsha, it's a whole new Parsha. Because what we knew last year, now we go deeper and deeper and deeper. And today we're going to take one law, just one pasuk, one verse in this week's Parsha. And the truth is, I could do it with every verse. We might be here for a couple of years just learning this Parsha, but every verse, every halacha, every Jewish law, by the way, the word halacha is law. Halacha actually stems from the word halach, to go, the way that we go. Every mitzvah, every law that we have has the simple one, the way Judaism approaches different things. And then there's what does it mean in our lives, in our psyche? It's a pretty fascinating one. So let's open up to Parshat Mishpatim on page 478 in the orange Chumash. Once again, if you don't have a Chumash, please buy one. Every Jewish home should have a Chumash. If you want to borrow one, let me know. I'll be happy to get you one. And on page 478 in Parshat Mishpatim, we could just go on and on and on. You start to read it on your own. If you have a slave, if you were unmarried, if there was, just keep reading. It's literally, you see how it's written in the Chumash, a bunch of dots, as it keeps going through all of the halachos of a kidnapping, of negligence, of theft. Just keep going through the Chumash. You'll see tons and tons of laws. There's 4 guardians. How does it? Idolatrous behavior, illicit behavior, respecting leaders, agricultural offerings, prejudice, false witnesses, idols, Shabbos, Yom Tif, division of land. Trying to find the halacha that I'm looking for. Okay, so we're on page number 487. Okay, we're in the midst of discussing laws of negligence and theft. And it talks over here. Let me start, before I get into the halacha, let me start with an interesting anecdote. A man walks into a bar, takes a drink. After a few minutes, he gets very angry, takes the glass, He throws it at the owner. The owner says, "Excuse me, sir, what are you doing?" He says, "I am so sorry. I just had a hard day today. Please forgive me." The owner says, "Okay, no problem. It happens. We all have hard days." He leaves, comes back the next time, throws it. Same story happens. Takes a drink, throws the glass at the owner. Owner's bleeding. He says, "You're not normal. What are you throwing a glass at me? I don't allow you to come into my bar unless you go for help. You're not allowed to walk into here unless you go get yourself some therapy and come back. What are you angry at me? What did I do to you?" A couple months go by, guy doesn't show up. A few months later, the guy walks into the bar, nice and jolly, takes a drink, throws it at the owner. He says, "I don't understand. I told you you're not allowed to come back to my bar. What's going on here?" He says, "I went for therapy and now I'm not embarrassed. I went for therapy and now I can do the same behavior, but at least I'm not embarrassed." It's a sad joke. But at first glance, the reason I share this with you is we are going to explore a law that seems very physical, but there's a deeper relevance to the statement. What happens if a person owns an animal and this animal attacks another animal?
The
Now,
owner's responsible.
in the particular case of the Chumash, it's talking about an ox. But I'm sure many of you own dogs or people own animals, right? And sometimes these animals are domesticated and they're very calm animals. And accidents happen. So without looking into the Chumash, do you know what the halacha is? If an animal hurts another animal, if your animal hurts another animal, what happens? What's the law? Who has to pay for the damage?
The owner of the animal that hurt the other animal.
Always?
No, I don't believe always. I think
don't-
there's specific circumstances, because if you have your animal on your property and somebody else's animal comes onto your property, your animal has every right to do what animals do. So it should be the other person.
So you're saying like it's circumstantial.
Right.
Okay.
Like if my dog bites your dog, but if my dog is on my property in my yard and your dog comes into my yard, my dog has every right to bite you.
Okay. Sure, there's a lot of differences of opinion. You're
Well,
talking
that's
to
law.
the woman who's
That's
petrified
secular
of
law.
dogs. So
That's
I'm not
secular
very
law.
objective. It's good we have halacha. It's good we have Jewish law to guide me, because I'm not the right person to ask. But let's take a look inside the Chumash. Let's see what the Torah tells us. Look at page 487. Look on verse number 35 on the bottom. If a man's ox, and again, it refers to any animal, strikes his fellow's ox and it dies, the owner of the attacking ox pays half the value of the loss up to the value of the attacking ox. Thus, if both oxen are of equal value, they could settle by settling the live bull and dividing the money received for it and dividing the value of the carcass. Verse 36. Alternatively, if it was known to be a habitually goring ox since yesterday and the day before, meaning it gored 3 times, and its owner does not watch it, he must pay full compensation, an ox for an ox. The dead animal belongs to its original owner. There's a halacha. If someone has a domesticated animal, okay, it's uncharacteristic of this animal to hurt another animal. But sadly, in utter shock, this bull goes and hurts another animal. The injury can be hurtful, it can be fatal. This is what's called, according to Jewish law, Talmud explains, it's called shar tam. It's an innocent ox. It's not its nature. Something happened that upset the ox or whatever it is. And therefore, the owner is obligated to pay half the damage. It's between the owner and the victim. A person could say, what do you mean? Why the victim? What is the victim? It's not the victim's fault. And probably in, in American law, there's a lot of different, I'm sure there's a lot of different laws and opinions. But in this particular case, the Torah tells us it's not necessarily the owner's fault either. The owner knows its animal to be a perfectly calm animal. Automatically it attacks another animal. Something doesn't sound right. Half and half. This is only, though, the Torah tells us, if it happens up to 3 times. Up to 3. Mike, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, because it says my internet connection is unstable. Let me just, looks like my phone is dying with my computer. This is if it happens 3 times. Now, what happens if it starts to happen more than 3 times? The Torah tells us that now there's a new status. It's not anymore a one-time incident. It's prone. It's 3 incidents according to halacha changes the status of the animal. Now it becomes the owner's responsibility to avoid these situations. It has to guard its animal because it knows that it's prone to these types of incidents. And if there's any other damage, the Torah clearly tells us, we just read it together, the owner has to pay completely for the damage. So basically, it's called in halachic terms a shur tam, and a shur tam means like innocent. An innocent animal, shur is an ox, and a shur mu'at, a shur that an animal that this has become its nature. This is its nature. It by nature has, if it happens more than 3 times, you never know when it could strike again. You're with me?
Yep.
Okay. Then comes the halacha in the Talmud called a famous halacha called the Baba Kama. Have you heard of the Baba Kama? Baba Kama comes based on this Parshat Mishpatim, and it says, it talks about in length about this law. And it says something interesting. Listen to this. If somebody has an ox and it gored other oxen only on Shabbos, not during the weekday, and it happens on Shabbos, nothing happens during the weekday. It happens again on Shabbos, nothing, 3 consecutive Shabbos. Then it has the status of the second type, mu'at, the one that the owner is responsible for the damage only on Shabbos. But if it, on Tuesday, if it happens, it has the status of shur tam. In other words, if it goes in Gores Shabbos and then Shabbos again, and then only on Shabbos, it takes on the status, the owner has to pay the full damage. But if it happens on a Tuesday randomly, it goes back to the other status. Why? What's the logic? So Rashi explains that Jewish animals, if you know, according to halacha, according to Jewish law on Shabbos, you're not allowed to work your animal. Did you know that? You're not allowed to work your animal on Shabbos. It's very nice. But when an ox has nothing to do, it's not being productive, it gets bored, and it climbs the walls. You have a teenager at home that's bored? Similar idea. What do people do when they're bored? Or at least people that are meant to be productive? They do things that are out of that character. It brings out the worst in them, so to speak. It brings out the worst in their nature. So here the Rashi explains that it's not about nature, it's about boredom. You understand? So on Shabbos, it's interesting. It's a very interesting halacha. There's a certain dignity that we give our animals, that they don't have to work, but there's consequences. There's a certain boredom that can express itself in aggressive behavior. I'm sure everybody knows if you have a kid at home that's bored and they're climbing the walls, and you know it's not their nature, they could become the next Einstein. But if you channel their energy in the right way, you've got yourself an unbelievable child. Same thing with the animal. The animal's a good animal. You're not letting it work. It's Shabbos. You're bringing out the worst in them. Rashi tells us that's why. If it's only happening on Shabbos, it's happening because of boredom. Understand what's going on, what the rabbis are talking about? The Taisvais, which is another from the Talmud Yerushalmi, from the Jerusalem Talmud, says there's a second reason. He says on Shabbos, maybe the ox doesn't recognize its family. Why? Because on Shabbos, we wear Shabbos clothing. Especially many years ago, right? The idea of wearing Shabbos attire is very different than the work attire. People work in the fields. So what it explains is it doesn't recognize its owner. It feels insecure. So the ox then, thank you so much. The ox, is this the right one? Saved by the charger. Thank you, Sasha. The ox is acting out of anxiety, out of fear. Its owner, who it recognizes every single day of the week, come Shabbos, it's like a fresh person. Maybe there's a little bit of anxiety or fear, and that is why the ox is behaving this way. It's another psychological example in human life as well, right? Sometimes we act out of fear or anxiety. We don't recognize the situation, right? Happens all the time with children. Child's in a new environment, there's a substitute, the parent's missing, whatever it is. It's not our nature to behave in a certain way, but the anxiety or the fear of the unfamiliar situation causes us to behave this way. It's interesting. There's a story of the famous Rogatchover Gun. He was a genius of a scholar that passed away in Latvia right before the Second World War. He's known within Jewish I guess history, so to speak, as a very, very famous rabbi. In fact, my husband's great-grandfather, Yechiel, they found letters of him corresponding with the Rogatchover Gaon. Very interesting, special person. And there was a woman that came to him one Shabbos and said that my baby breastfeeds beautifully, but every Shabbos, she stops breastfeeding properly. And the Rogatchover Gaon brings out the Gemara, brings out the Talmud, and he points to this exact example. He says, you see this example when an animal doesn't behave itself on Shabbos because it doesn't recognize the owner, so to speak, there's an unfamiliarity. He brings her this halacha. He says, maybe on Shabbos, you dress differently, you act differently. Try to alter the situation. And in fact, the situation resolved itself. The baby started to nurse properly. So what the point, baby's very sensitive. We also underestimate, babies are unbelievable. I always say that when I watch my own babies, when somebody walks into my house, because a lot of strangers, sometimes strange people, but but I don't know if they're strange, right? I'm sure you feel that way yourself. A new person walks into your domain, you don't know them, right? They're a stranger. I always watch the way my baby reacts. I find that babies are very sensitive. It's always interesting to me how a child, not always, if my baby doesn't smile at you, that doesn't mean I think you're strange. But I do find that children, they're very sensitive. They have like a certain intuitiveness. They know. You know what I'm saying? Animals too. Animals are very sensitive. Anybody who owns an animal can vouch for that animals are very intuitive. They feel. So what happens now that we establish the halacha? If the ox gores randomly, half the value I have to pay. I'm the owner. If it gores 3 times, I have to take full responsibility. But if it only happens on Shabbos, then according to Rashi, I could attribute it to either boredom. According to the Taisvais, I could attribute it to anxiety, and I only remains that status as is. What happens, moving on, if the ox or the bull or really any animal, can it revert back to being the domesticated animal that it is? In other words, if you know this animal to really be a domesticated animal that doesn't hurt people, can it revert back to being what it really is? Sometimes you can train a wild animal, right? You know that there are trainers. You can train a dog. Anyone who's a dog owner knows that. You can train a bull. There are certain techniques that can be done by trainers, right? We're not talking, by the way, about like a lion or a tiger or an animal that no matter how much you train it, which you can train those animals, by its nature, those are dangerous animals. We're talking about an animal that by its nature, it's a domesticated animal. And when it trains itself, it's really good. It doesn't hurt. You know, everybody who sees me and knows that I'm scared of dogs, they bring me their dog. They say, this is the dog that's going to change your fear. Everybody feels that their dog is the one that's going to save me from my sorrow. It's unbelievable. Everyone's like, my dog. You should see my dog. This is the one. And you know that there is a concept that comes from like the, you know, the front part, the rational part of my brain that doesn't react rationally, that it makes no sense to be afraid of a dog, especially your dog, right? That an animal can be trained. So the halacha tells us if your animal gored 3 times, right? And now it lost all its status as a domesticated animal, you have to pay full damage. If you go ahead and you train that animal, and it's not just trained, but it's proven, it hangs around children, it hangs around people, and it doesn't hurt anybody. Now it gets proven that the animal really was trained properly, it can revert back to the status of being a domesticated animal, and the halacha changes, the law changes.
Amen.
When a person says a bracha, you say amen. That's why I said it loud. Amen, it should come true. Amen means it should come true. So that's one way that it can revert if you train it. Halacha, Jewish law tells us that there's another method that we're going to discuss today. And that is, listen to this, a change of authority. If it goes to a new owner. It's a very big question. I don't understand. If I train the animal, I understand. Then it's proven that the animal is now okay. You don't argue with that. But just to say that it's under a new owner, how can halacha? Rambam has a whole discussion about this, Maimonides, that just by selling or gifting the animal, it changes. Isn't that interesting? Right now, my animal gored 3 times. I sell it to you, and I tell you all the ramifications. I tell you everything. Right now, it reverts back to who it is. Reverts back to as if it never was. How does this make any sense? So you're saying that the new owner has now a new responsibility, but why is the new owner now off the hook? In other words, if you give me, you tell me, Rivka, I'm selling you my animal. It's a wild one. It gored 3 times. Now, all of a sudden, I get a free animal. If this animal goes and hurts my neighbor's animal, all of a sudden, I only have to pay half. Why do I get off the hook? I'm not talking, again, about wild animals. We're talking about domesticated animals that can be trained, that generally are very soft and kind. It's very interesting. You say, if you train them, it reverts back to original status. But if you gift it or sell it to someone, it also goes back to its original status. And Rabbi Yehuda in the Gemara says that what is it? That when you gift it or you sell it, you change its mazel. You change its luck. Now, is it physical or is it spiritual? What do you mean it changes its luck? So if you remember, we spoke about that. The sensitivity of an animal is that it's like, look how sensitive it is. It remembers the Shabbos clothes, right? Remember we went back and we said that on Shabbos, it might not recognize you. It feels that you changed. You're now dressed for Shabbos. It's that sensitive an animal. So when it comes to a new owner, it's very aware, it's very sensitive of the new owner. First of all, physically, it's in a new place. It's a new pen, it's a new farm, it's a new wherever it is. And then emotionally, now somebody new is taking care of it. The animal now knows there's a new system in place. It's like, in school on the first day, even the worst troublemaker is on its best behavior, just for a few minutes or hours, because it knows now it's in a new domain. And if the teacher's a really special teacher, we all know those stories of those kids that do terribly in school, but they get into that one classroom with that unbelievable teacher. Nobody recognizes the kid. What? The kid changed? No, the new owner brought out in the child a certain connection. I heard this story about a teacher in New York. Maybe it's New York kids. Look, I'm from New York. Kids in New York, maybe the teacher was nervous to teach a class in New York. It's like the joke of, why do people why are the people in New York so uptight? It's because it says the light at the end of their tunnel is New Jersey. I'm just joking. From New York, I love New York. But there's a story of this Rebbe he comes into class the first day, tells his students, I want you to know it's going to be very, very hard for you to change my perception that I love you and that I care about you. You're going to have to do a lot of damage to convince me that you're not worth my love. It says that this teacher was a very successful teacher in New York. He was a very famous teacher. What's the point? It says in our prophets, in Yeshayahu, in Isaiah, it says the animals, it describes in the prophets, it says the ox knows its owner, the donkey knows the trough of its master, but my people don't know me. It's another verse that brings out the idea that animals know their owners, they sense. So what is this? Why am I bringing all these examples? That new systems, new owners change things. The animal is very sensitive to that, and it can sense there's a new owner, I need to behave. There's a story of a famous horse in Germany. I think it was known by his name was Hans, the horse. You heard about this? He was like a little mathematician. It's a crazy horse. They would ask the horse a question, what's 9 times 9? And he would tap his foot, the owner would count 1, 2, and by number 81, it would stop and it would bang its hoof. And people from all over came to observe this horse. What is this? A horse doesn't have a mathematician brain. How does a horse know 9 plus 9, 9, 10, multiplication, division? It was like a crazy thing. And scientists from all over came to observe this horse. How is it possible? So they decided that they're going to take the owner and they're going to put the owner behind a curtain. And then they're going to go ahead and ask the horse the same questions. And when they did that, sometimes the horse got it right and sometimes not. Then they took the owner away. And then they asked the question. Nothing doing, no answers. And they came to this conclusion that the horse had such a sensitivity to the owner that as the owner was counting the numbers, there was a certain anxiety within the owner not to say, this is the right answer. But the minute it got to the right number, the owner relaxed and the horse sensed it and banged his hoof. This was the conclusion of the scientists with the horse. That the horse was so sensitive to the anxiety, to the fear, to the relaxation of the owner that it knew in a second what the answer was. So the minute you took the owner away, the horse doesn't know. Horse is not a mathematician. So we see that when the owner changes, there's a new sensitivity, and the halacha, the law, actually changes and brings it back to being a domesticated animal. Now, every halacha, every law for what it is. By the way, we're talking about one line in the Torah. Every halacha is also a reflection of an emotional and psychological mirror in ourselves, within the human being as well. All halachas in general are all, when I say halachas, all laws are as what it is, the pshat that we just explained, but there is a reflection, there's a mirror in our own life and our own relationships. When we study Jewish law, we're really studying our own soul. And we are going to use this halacha as an example. Each and every one of us inside has what's called a nefesh. We have a bull inside of us. Okay? We have within us two souls. We have the animal soul that's called, according to Tanya, the nefesh ha-behamis. What does behamis stand for? Animal soul, behema. A behema is an animal. We have within us the animal soul. And then we have nefesh elokis, we have the divine soul. Now, what is the difference of these two souls? The animal soul, contrary to popular belief, is not evil. Not an evil soul just because it's animalistic. It's exactly that. It's animalistic. Every animal, even your animal, any animal that we see, a puppy, it's very cute. It's very close to you. But at the end of the day, it's an animal. Nobody's going to tell you that an animal is a person. You might say an animal might be more sensitive than a person, but at the end of the day, it's an animal, right? An animal instinctively acts on instinct. I always love to bring this example of Shlomo HaMelech. King Solomon wanted to prove this point, that as much as you train an animal is an animal. An animal acts according to its needs. It doesn't have free choice. It doesn't look at, the lion doesn't look at the tiger and say, I feel bad, maybe I shouldn't eat the tiger, or this bird, it's a nice mother, it has to go home to its kids. An animal by nature is an animal. It has survival instinct, and nobody's gonna say, oh, what a disgusting animal, it's eating that bird. It's ripping it apart in the most disgusting fashion. Say it's an animal, that's what an animal is. King Solomon wanted to prove this point, that animals don't have bechira chavshis, free choice. And I had an argument with the emperor at the time. So the emperor trains a cat to be a waiter, and it has a perfect performance. It serves tea, and it's an unbelievable act. And it comes the day, and he proves it to him. He says, you should see the way I've trained for months this cat. It's going to serve me perfectly, has proper etiquette, has manners, and Taka, it's true. All of a sudden, King Solomon releases a mouse from its pocket and puts the mouse down on the floor. 2 seconds, the dishes were broken. The cat leaped for the mouse. Does it mean that the cat wasn't trained properly? Of course not. It was trained amazing. But at the end of the day, instinct is instinct. Animal is animal. The animal soul within us is exactly that. It's our bodily needs. I'm hungry. I need to eat. I need to survive. I need to live. I need to breathe. And we take care of our bodies, our bodily needs by instinct. Naturally, a person is not going to starve themselves. If a person's starving themselves, that's against nature. So the animal within us is not the one that makes the sophisticated choices. The human being has the animalistic dimension within us. In neuroscience, it's unbelievable how I love reading updated science magazines and studies that come out. And I'm like, oh, just learned that in Tanya the other day. It's amazing how it all comes back. It's all in our book. That's why it's the bestseller. That's why we're studying this, because it's all there. Neuroscience we all know, explains that we have the ability to respond to danger. What's that called? It's actually a part of the brain.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. Very good. The fight or flight is that instinctive ability to respond to danger. There's another region of the brain that deals with the social element, deals with certain emotions and relationships. And then there's the other part, which is the what's it called? Forget the name. I forget the name of, there's a certain part of the brain, the frontal reflex in the brain, that makes decisions based on reflection. That's the part of the brain that can act rationally. That even though instinctively I may do A, I have that ability within my brain to make a rational decision, even if I feel a certain way. That's what makes the human being different. And basically, what science is discovering is that these first two parts of the brain, they're connected to the nefesh habahamis, right? There's the instinctive and the emotional. Those are the nefesh habahamis inside of me, the animal soul inside of me that makes those decisions. But that prefrontal cortex, that's what it's called. The prefrontal cortex, that's what is known also as executive function. Have you heard of this? For those that are familiar with these things, it has the ability to differentiate between good and bad, between making a goal for myself, making predictions, suppressing certain urges that are going to lead me to have a bad outcome. All of those frontal decisions, that every human being has that ability. And that is where the godly soul comes in, the part that is able to make a good choice, even if I don't feel that way. To have that instinctive ability, to have that emotional decision, and to say, I'm gonna rise above. I'm gonna be higher. You know, the animal within us, and even a regular animal can have a bad day, right? Had a trauma, it had a fear, it walked onto your property, something happens that ruffles up the animal, and we recognize that. Even an innocent animal can have a bad day up to 3 times. Up to 3 times you can say a bad day. By the way, us also. Even the best mother in the world scream at her kids. She had a bad day. The best spouse in the world, was gentle, kind, loving spouse, has a bad day, or is triggered by something in their life. Somebody says something to them and it brings up an old trauma. It's a trigger for something. But guess what? You can apologize. You can say, I'm sorry. What you said triggered me. It came from a certain part of my brain that was fight or flight. I didn't mean to speak that way. You know, it's like the Jewish telegram is. Start worrying, details to follow. So the ox, the shar tam, the first one is you had a bad day. The shar mu'at, that's already post the 3 times of goring. Already up to the ox that you have to pay full damage for. That's not the hard day type. That's what we call probably in today's words, an addict. Somebody who it's become a pattern. It's not anymore, I had a bad day. I was triggered. Now it's time after time after time again. Now it's a pattern and we have to take full responsibility. You know, freedom is like a muscle. You use it or you lose it. What does this mean? The more a person says, I want to take responsibility for my life. I know I have these certain issues that are causing me to behave in a certain way. But a person can't remain a victim their entire life. You get 3 passes. Figuratively, not exactly 3 passes. Because we're human. We're a human being. Hashem understands. We're not perfect. And by the way, the goal is not to be perfect. There are opportunities. There are times in our life that we make mistakes. We deal with the stuff that we deal with. We have baggage. Everybody does. And we behave in a certain way. Do we have free choice? It's your choice. You have a choice if to have free choice. Freedom is a muscle. We have a choice on how we want to live our lives. That's what we have more than an animal. We have the nefesh elokis, we have that godly soul within us, and we have a choice on how we're going to live our lives. Are we going to get the help that we need? Or are we going to just keep doing what we're doing and expecting different results? So what does it mean that when you sell or you gift an animal to another person, all of a sudden it reverts back to the status before? In a person, this means surrendering ourselves to Hashem, surrendering our animal within us to God, from who is its true owner. You know, halacha tells us, the Rashi told us, that there's two ways it goes back to its original status. Number one, if you train it. Number two, if you sell it, right? So yes, training my animal is for sure an option. And by the way, we should do that. We should train our animal. We should go for the therapy that it needs to, whatever it needs to train that behavior. But that does take a long time. And it's not that we shouldn't do it, but there is an option that we can do right now. We can gift it. We can sell it. We could surrender it to Hashem. And if we surrender our animal to Hashem, what that basically means is that every single day, I can look at my reality with a new freshness. I don't have to live every single day of my life bogged down by the issues that I dealt with yesterday. We know that Hashem explains in Hasidic philosophy and Kabbalah that Hashem didn't just create the world, he creates it every second. And if there would be a moment that Hashem would stop recreating the world, we would cease to exist. What that means is that Hashem is constantly giving energy and life flow to this universe. It's not like Hashem created the world, God created the world, and he left it. Every single moment, Hashem is giving vitality and existence. Every person relates to this on a different level. You know, there was a Paritz, a landlord, who put this nice Jewish inn owner, he didn't pay the rent, threw him into jail. He told him, you know, I'm going to be nice to you. After a few months in jail, I'm going to let you come out for one holiday. Choose a holiday, I'll let you come out. So he wrote a letter to this great rabbi who lived in the time. It's a true story. He says, which holiday should I choose? I choose Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year. Should I choose Pesach? Went through all the holidays. Which holiday should I choose that I'll be released from prison just for this one holiday? And you know what the rabbi came back and told him? You should come out today. Every day is a moment. Every day is a holiday. Every day is an opportunity to start fresh, to start anew. And we have two ways for dealing with our life, for dealing with our animal soul, for dealing with the challenges that our animal soul brings. Option one, we need to train it. And anybody here who knows of something that they need to work on or have worked on, it's a lot of work. It's possible. Torah tells us how to do that. And we should do that. But then there's the element that we can't forget about, and that's called surrendering. And when I say surrender, I don't mean the easy way out. Okay, Hashem, I can't deal with this pain. I can't deal with this challenge. I can't deal with this, so I'll give it to you. You take care of it for me. I'm talking about a surrendering that comes from strength. A surrendering that recognizes that the challenges that we face on a daily basis, Hashem knows about them. And Hashem is here to help us. When we approach our day, we tell Hashem, I need help. I need you to take ownership. I need you to give me guidance. I need you to help me recognize that I cannot do this alone. We can start fresh every single day. When we bring Hashem into our lives, when we bring a new owner into our lives, when we recognize that the ownership is something that Hashem is there to help us, we can re-domesticate ourselves. We can go through the pain and the suffering that our animal souls go through, the triggers, the baggage, the stuff that every single person has in their lives. And it's very powerful. You would take a moment today just to think of something that you're going through in your life, or something that someone else is going through, and recognize that Hashem is right there. The new owner or the old owner is right there. We will be able to heal ourselves in a way like no other, because we have that animal, we have that godly soul within us. We have that ability to make choices. We're not doomed. We have a chilek elokam imam mamish. We have an actual piece of Hashem inside of us that has the ability to rise higher, to rise above, to help us. You see, we don't recognize that all the time. A lot of times we live in such darkness. We live in our lives with so much pain. And we think we can never get better. It can never get better. I have this animal soul within me. What am I going to do about it? This is who I am. The Torah tells us no. Not only could you retrain, not only could you choose not to be a victim and train yourselves, but you have the ability to turn to Hashem. Say, Hashem, help me out here. I need your help. I'm surrendering it to you. I'm counting on you. And when we bring that relationship with Hashem in our lives, everything changes. Everything changes. All of a sudden, we have the ability to not be shackled down by the things that hold us down. We have the ability to start fresh. Like that rabbi said, you have an ability to go out of prison today, go out today. You have the ability to start today, right away. You don't have to wait until you're perfect. You don't have to wait for the years of therapy. You should go for therapy, but you don't have to wait for that. Today, Hashem, help me out here. Change the owner today. Automatic, reverts back to its original. That's a heavy stuff, no? Any questions? A lot of questions. Tell me. Tell me a question, Berta.
So if you believe that it's your healthy, so that means that takes them from outside.
What do you mean?
Won't walk from outside.
Mm-mm. Berta asks, does that mean that if Hashem helps, he takes all the work out of ourselves? Absolutely not. But you have now a renewed strength. You have a God that believes that you, Berta, is not a victim to your life. You have God within you. You have a part of Hashem inside of you that even with all that garbage that clouds your life, at the end of the day, who are you? You're an Hashem. You're pure. You're holy. There's a part of you within you that's perfect. And you can tap into that anytime. But you have to recognize it. It's not that it's a world that's free of work. We just have the ability within us by recognizing that there's a God, is recognizing that there's God within us, and by recognizing that Hashem will help us. You know, I want to tell you something. We had a workshop on, this. Anyone watch, by the way, the banquet, the conference, the virtual conference on Sunday? I posted a link. You know that every year, once a year, we go for the conference, all the Rebbitzins, all the women. Once a year, we go to New York to gather. This year, it was virtual. So we had Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, a whole bunch of workshops. And there was a discussion going on within one of the workshops. I actually moderated the workshop. I didn't give it. I was just the moderator of the Zoom about filling your spiritual tank. And if especially in general, as mothers and wives and Rebbitzins, you're constantly giving towards other people. You need to fill your own tank spiritually, right? You can only give if you're spiritually in a place where you can give. So there was a conversation about a woman. She asked a question that she was overwhelmed. She lived in an area of she lives in a town that's, she's very lonely. She lives very, very far off, and she struggles on a daily basis to find time to fill her tank. And she actually turned to me, says, "You live in we had a conversation about prayer, and she says sometimes, she tells me, I daven for a few minutes a day. I don't feel like that's not what I need. I need more." We had a whole conversation how actually a few minutes a day of davening, you start off your day, 10 minutes. 10 minutes a day. You turn to Hashem. You start off first of all, you start off your morning. Maida ani. Hashem, Maida, I thank you. Thank you for giving me back my soul. Maida ani lefanecha. I thank you. Shachazarta bi nishmasi, that you return my soul. And then we end off the two important words of the Moda Ani prayer, that prayer that we say first thing in the morning, Rabba emunasecha. My faith is strong. You believe in me. You believe in me. You wake up in the morning every day, Hashem, you believe in me. If you touch base with Hashem once a day, that will change your life. For some, it's just Moda Ani. For some that say Moda Ani, the morning prayers, we have so much at our fingertips that allow us. You'll see, when you daven, when you talk to Hashem every day for a few minutes, your day will be a different day. You will face the challenges in a completely different way. Yes, Gittel. Gittel, you have a question? I thought you raised your hand.
I think fear of Hashem helps you to go through.
Say again, Mira?
Fear of Hashem.
Fear of Hashem? What do you say? That fear is not a good thing.
It's not a good thing, but if you have a fear of Hashem, it stops you from doing many negative things.
So if I may rephrase the words that you're saying, you say the word fear, I'm going to rephrase it according to Torah. We're supposed to have Avas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. Love of God. People incorrectly translate it as fear of God, but you're not supposed to fear Hashem. You know what the word Yira means? Awe. It's a different word. Fear is like, I'm scared I'm going to get punished. Awe is
Or
A-W-E, awe. It's amazement with like trepidation. It's like, wow. It's not fear as in I'm scared of Hashem. It's like, not even to compare, but like, you know, a person that you're in awe of, Everybody has one or two people in their life that they're just in awe of them. You wouldn't want to do certain things because you have in front of that person.
You know what? I think this is the feeling of being watched.
It's a different concept. The idea of being watched, that's a concept in Judaism that we should always remember. Hashem knows everything, but not necessarily from a place of fear, like I'm going to get punished, more from a place of responsibility.
Can I
That-
say something? Can I just say something?
Sure, that's
I,
Rita.
yes, I just wanted to, I feel that unconditional love to God, then guilt trip in a way, and the habits. We should teach ourselves, like you said, start 2 minutes every day to daven. That's a habit. That's a habit. Then it's go unconditional love to God, and a guilt trip not to do it, not to be scared. Guilt trip not to do it.
Fear, there's no place of fear
Yes,
in Judaism
yes.
from a place. Tanya discusses this. Fear, it's not like other religions that you're scared you're going to go to hell.
It's a different word. I just didn't use the right
Right, I understand, but there is
Always guilt
There
trip.
is some feeling that
I honestly think that's where the guilt trip come from, by not doing the right thing. And it's a measure from a little thing to the God, to unconditional
guilt.
love.
right. I also think that if you were to compare it, a child and a parent, our relationship with us and Hashem, when a parent has a very good relationship with their child, right? Take, for example, a father who's usually the stronger figure in the home, right? If a father thinks the world of you, you don't want to disappoint him. It's not that you're scared that your father is going to punish you. You're scared that I don't want to disappoint my father. There's an element when you have a relationship with Hashem, you don't want to disappoint Hashem because you know Hashem believes in you. A relationship with Hashem should be like one of a father and a child. Hashem believes in you. He's here to help you, to coach you, not to take it away from you. We know that a good father doesn't enable their child. It helps the child stand on its own 2 feet. Subtle, but it's different. Anybody else?
Let's start with good habits. How about that?
I think that that's a very good point. And by the way, when I became an adult, I have to say, I recognized something that I didn't realize as a child. A lot of things, but something specific that I want to share. As a child, I was raised in a Jewish observant home where I was taught all the mitzvahs, right? You wake up in the morning, you say Maidani, wash your hands, you daven, you make a bracha, you eat, Yom Tov, Shabbos, all the stuff that Jewish people do. Thank God I grew up in a very loving and warm home, and I wanted to. But when I was 6 years old, I didn't really need a reason for saying Moda'ani. My mother told me when you wake up in the morning, you thank Hashem for giving back your neshama. So I said Moda'ani my whole life. I can tell you the Moda'ani that I say today is very different than the Moda'ani that I did when I was 6 years old out of habit. But I'm grateful that I have the habit of Moda'ani, so now I can take my Moda'ani to a much deeper level. You understand? Habits are very good to do, even if you don't believe in them, even if you don't understand them. Because when you start to create certain habits, within time, you can go deeper and deeper, and now you can benefit the benefit that comes from those habits. So Rita, you're right. Each and every one of us should create certain habits in our life. And really, if you think about it, that's what Torah and mitzvos are in our lives. You see, Hashem gives us all the tools we need to survive, to succeed. how to wake up in the morning, how to go to sleep at night. Say Shema. It's amazing. Wake up in the morning. My Da'ani, everybody's coming out now with gratitude journal. Start your morning with gratitude. Go at night and say Shema. Everyone's talking now about making, an account of your life. Write in a journal when you go to sleep at night. Shabbos has been around forever. Everybody's talking about taking a break, refreshing yourself, disconnecting from technology. Take a technology break. It's unbelievable. To program our lives to live in the optimum way. Because Hashem created us. He knows what's best for us. Science and technology. Everybody's coming out now with new ideas. All the habits that Rita's talking about, we have the ability right now. You don't need any training. We have the ability to take upon ourselves the basic mitzvahs that Hashem has given us. You don't have to wait till you learn everything. There's nothing to wait for. Just start doing it. The answers will come. The emotions will come. The training will come. Start today. Just do a mitzvah. Don't wait to understand the whole mitzvah, because you're never going to understand it fully.
Exactly.
Start with action. Because at the end of the day, hamaisa hu ha'ikar. Action is what counts. We live in a world of action. I could be sitting in my house and I could say, my neighbor really needs help. It's a nice thought. Does your neighbor care if you want to help her, you don't want to help her? She needs help. Action is what counts. Obviously, it's nicer if you go with a smile. Obviously, it's nicer if you feel good about it. Obviously, it's nicer if you want to do it. But the action is what counts. Judaism is I don't like to use the word religion because Judaism is not a religion. Judaism is an identity of action. It's all about action. You have a choice if to keep kosher or to want to keep kosher. It's more important to keep kosher than to want to keep kosher and think about keeping kosher, even if you're not in the mood of keeping kosher. If you make a decision that you have a choice between the kosher and the not kosher, and you make a decision to eat the kosher, but you're not excited about it, you don't have passion, it's more important to do the action. And it's sustainable when you want to do it. It's very complicated. It's very complicated, but it's not so, but it's very simple. Everybody, let's tap into ourselves. And this is for all of us. Let's tap into our psyche. Let's tap into our nefesh elokis, to our godly soul. Let's tap into our relationship with Hashem. Let's talk to Hashem. Tell him about what's going on. And he'll help us.
Amen.
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 I will not be having class next week. Forgive me. I'm not going to be here. We're going to skip 1 week, but I will send out a few links of some audio classes that I will encourage you to participate in from Chabad.org. So you don't miss out on the next Parsha with Teruma. So you could listen to it anytime during the week. We will resume classes the next Tuesday, and I will send out a follow-up. Anybody who would like to volunteer with our packages. No, I'll send out an email with all the information. All right, ladies, it's so good to see you. You can stay on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Rivka.
You are welcome. Have a wonderful day. A wonderful week. And that's it.
How many people come for Purim party?
How many people are coming or how many people could come?
Coming.
Which one?
So far.
I don't know. I didn't. Besides you and me, I don't know anybody else.
I even have my outfit.
You're way ahead of the game.
Yes.
I haven't decided yet what I'm wearing.
Okay.
But the tent is up.
It's easy.
We have lots of ideas.
Yeah.
It's a conversation going on in the Schmerling house, what we're dressing up like for Purim. First, we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Then we can take action.
That's good.
There's always a conversation. Do the kids dress up like a group?
Shepherd.
Like I told, should we all be different biblical people or should they each be their own costume? One wants to be a soda machine. Another wants to be a donkey. I told the kids, whatever you choose, I stand behind you.
It's gonna be the easiest as shepherds. We need
Yeah, right? Get a bunch of burlap.
Yeah.
It's going to be very nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Looking forward.
Yes. Purim is always a special holiday. Purim is my grandfather's birthday. My grandfather, who Mordechai is named after.
In
His
my
birthday-
mother's too.
Is on Purim?
Yeah, Esther.
Her birthday. Wow, and my grandfather's Mordechai.
Yeah.
That's why he was named Mordechai, because he was born on Purim and Mordechai is named after him.
Yeah. Same here.
Have a good day. Take care, Berta.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Time to go back to work.
Back to work? Okay. Bye-bye.
Back to work. No. Never. Always good to speak with you.
Okay.
Have a good week, Mira.
You too, dear. Everybody left? Yes?